Welcome to week 2 of the Echelon Racing League as we continue racing this week, starting with the Gateway Cup this weekend and then moving to the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic for day 2 of week number 2. Many great exports from St. Louis, Missouri, including the Arch, Anheuser-Busch, but the most famous is the 4th day of Gateway Cup, the Benton Park Classic, one of our favorite days of racing, over 4 days of racing at the Gateway Cup, but today we're racing around the longest circuit of the weekend out in St. Louis, Missouri. This is always a classic on the American race calendar. And you can see why. So many riders always want to make it out to Gateway for 4 days of racing. And, of course, the great courses out there as well. Brad Soner here with Lauren Hall, as always, here in the Echelon Racing League. Lauren, this is a race that you know well. You've done this many, many times. And I know when we looked at the course profile before the start of the show today, you were asking which course is this, and you knew it as the Brewery course.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite courses because of all the corners. It kind of comes back on itself a little bit right there through the mechanics area, and it's just and then you have the uphill drag to the finish line. This is such a dynamic course today, and I'm really excited to see how it races on e-racing.
Well, we got our first preview of how these fields are going to be racing this year, starting last week or 2 weeks ago in week number 1. We are part of a full series of racing here this week in week number 2 of the Echelon Racing League. Again, starting with Gateway and into the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic this weekend, but we're really racing every 2 weeks. Lauren, this is a full schedule of racing this season. These riders really have to make a commitment in the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, thinking about their training and talking to Erin actually on text a couple of weeks ago, and she's talking about how much better it is to do the racing than it is to actually be on the trainer and do intervals. So this is a great way for people to stay fit and continue to get more fit throughout the winter leading up into the actual season.
And we're always in the Echelon Racing League, including the NFT Trophy of 2021. The winners of our Pro Women's and Pro Men's series will be receiving these custom-minted NFT trophies from RGT and the Echelon Racing League. If you don't know what an NFT is, just wait 5 years and you will. It's kind of like Bitcoin. Just the kids are doing it. That's all you need to know. It's going to be very popular. So our winners will receive their NFT trophy. It's a digital version of the trophy. You have all the trophies hanging in your house, Lauren. I know you keep the jerseys and the big checks and stuff like that. Well, now you're going to have something you can put on your hard drive or Facebook or whatever you want to put on there. All right, well, you see our riders getting ready in our Zoom room. We're going to be keeping an eye on them throughout the day today, bringing you live coverage here in the Echelon Racing League. Before we get into talking more about this week, let's go back and talk about week number 1 in the Echelon Racing League, because that was our real first preview of these riders and how it was going to go. Starting with the women, Jackie Godby finally met her match, Lauren, after a dominant performance in 2020-2021. Julia Scalou comes onto the scene, and all of a sudden, Jackie Godby is a real competitor.
Yeah, she did meet her match, and Scalou is still trying to figure it out, I think. And so I'm excited to see what happens this weekend. Scalou is almost there, trying to really find that finish line first. But, yeah, I think this weekend we should start sorting this out. And if I'm anybody else in the women's peloton, I'm just trying to hang on their wheel and do the best I can for as long as I can.
We also saw a really strong field back in the main group. Great battles going on for third place on down the line as well. But the Godby and Scalou battle up at the front, and then we watched riders like Erin Ayala ride her way to a third place podium. There's a solid group of like 7 to 10 riders back in the field that'll be competing for that third podium spot. But it seems like Godby and Scalou are really riding on another level. So kind of a 2-for-1 special in this race. You're going to see the breakaway group and then the main group, but we do expect to see Godby with another dominant performance. And question really is, can Scalou there? So it'll be interesting. You have to think, Lauren, that Scalou went back and made some changes after week 1.
Or even, yeah, maybe a couple of finite changes, but I don't know what else you can do to beat Jacqueline or to even compete with her, is just trying to hang on her wheel and then trying to figure out a different point to attack in those last laps. So, yeah, yeah, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Godby winning last week by just a second over Scalou. Erin Ayala in third. Schumann in fourth will be another one to watch. And then Emma O'Toole in fifth place. O'Toole draft pick earlier in the season. She ends up inside the top 10 as well at 7th place overall as we see the overall series standings after week number 1. It's a points-based system in the Echelon Racing League, so it's kind of like an omnium type scoring. Instead of keeping track of the overall time, we keep track of the wins basically that the rider has. 200 points for a win, 180 points for second on down the line. So Jackie Godby with 2 wins under her belt already leads the overall series standings with 400 points. Emma O'Toole, we talked about in 7th position, was a draft pick from the Echelon Racing League. So nice to see her up in the top 7. They were able to pick 4 from the Community League races that are held the week before all of the pro races here in the Echelon Racing League. So O'Toole, Schwarzenwaller, Carent, and Belial all got the call up from the Community League into the Pro League. And looks like Emma O'Toole is really making the best of it out there. So we're going to be keeping an eye on Emma O'Toole. Lauren, sometimes that's an advantage to be sort of the underdog, the unknown in the field. You can use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, as racing goes, and like we're talking about learning the system and learning how to get better at playing the game. Yeah, I think some of these athletes are in that process of learning on the fly, right? Like just trying to see how they can figure this out, and from the front of the race to in the peloton and everywhere in between. So it's really great to see this community athletes being picked up and coming up into the pro races.
All right, let's take a look at our course today. Again, the Benton Park Classic, the longest circuit that they have at the Gateway Cup, just south of downtown in St. Louis in the Benton Park neighborhood. I love this course. It starts right in front of the park. There's a beautiful lake there, awesome infrastructure. But, Lauren, this is also one of the hardest courses of the weekend.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing a lake when I was racing this race in person. Yeah, you go across the bridge. You have such a dynamic course on the backside. And then again, coming into the finish is pretty tricky. Way more cornering left and rights. So a lot more dynamic today. This is a great course and a good finish line.
Especially on RGT, we talk about the physics on this platform. You really have to understand how the corners work. And so 10 turns on this course, that will affect the racing. If you don't understand how RGT works, you're going to have a really hard time today. If you think you just go out there and try and mash the pedals and hammer it, well, you're going to be in for a rough one. All right, we are just a few minutes away from a race start. We are being joined right now by the legend himself, Gateway Cup race director, Mike Weiss from Big Shark Bicycle. Mike, thanks for being with us this morning, and welcome back to your race. It's weird to welcome a race director to your own race, but you're in our world now, in the virtual world. Nice to have you here.
I love it. I don't have to set it up.
Mike, you have one of the best crews by far, and when you say you don't have to set it up, I saw you at Gateway Cup this year. Not doing a whole lot. A lot of time on the radio, a lot of time meeting and greeting the VIPs. You have an incredible team at Gateway Cup that makes it happen. So I'm not surprised that you're able to sort of let this go.
Well, that's actually only because you show up a little later in the day. But yeah, the team of people that puts on the Gateway Cup is almost as old as the event itself. So very, very lucky to have all these folks. They just need to take care of their bodies so that they can't quit.
Talk to me about Benton Park course. Always a highlight, a favorite. We had a little bit of rain this year, but this has got to be tough to put together. The longest course of the weekend, right?
Yeah, and part of the Gateway Cup is that we're in these urban neighborhoods that are a little bit, different than your typical, like the typical setting for a bike race. Like this is a mixed income, really diverse area, really diverse architecture, and when we sort of pitched this idea to the neighborhood, they kind of didn't know what to think about it. And so it's a really complicated course. We close a lot of streets, a lot of one-way streets. And so it's, but it really showcases like that core of that sort of industrial St. Louis, right by the brewery, close to the river. So it's, I think after the first 3 days of Gateway Cup that are squares, rectangles, showing up on Monday, definitely takes a lot of people who've never done the event by surprise.
It definitely changes the way the race
whoever wins that
out.
race is definitely the best athlete.
And last question, you guys also have one of the coolest pace cars of the series or of the season, I guess, racing around. Last year it was an Audi, if I remember.
Yeah, we're really fortunate that we have an awesome sponsor in Bommarito Audi of West County in St. Louis. They saw stage 3, and so they flipped out our Audi RS7 for the RS8. So they figured it needed a few more cylinders and a little bit more in common with the Lamborghini. Our pace car driver was nervous the entire time because he's not really dealt with 700 horsepower before. But yeah, that was not my personal car.
Quality upgrade. Well, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. We are just about to get started, and just like the real-life Gateway Cup, we start on time here in the Echelon Racing League. So I think there was some fence down in turn 2 you might want to go take a look at. Bring some zip ties and some with you. It sounds like there might be a car trying to get on the course, so I'll let you go deal with that. Mike Weiss, race director of the Gateway Cup. All right, Lauren, racing underway. The all-important start. We talk about this a lot at the beginning of these Echelon Racing League starts. You have to get your power as high as possible early on. This has to be weird as an athlete to start from 100. I mean, you're starting from basically your maximum effort that you can do. I don't know that there's any other competition that starts like that where you go 100% from the gun.
Yeah, unless it's like the flying start on the velodrome, a sprint race. But yeah, this is totally different dynamics. Usually you're supposed to be unclipped, 1 foot on the ground. That's race rules. So, but then yeah, you clip in and you go. Usually the first couple of laps is pretty full gas. So that's not unusual. But yes, starting out pedaling full gas is unusual. But by now, I would think that second season, people are now familiar with the racing platform a little bit. Second race weekend for the pros, you should kind of have a gist of how this plays out and how it starts. So, and it looks like everybody's kind of keyed in on that, especially this weekend, keeping their eye on Jacqueline.
Yeah, that's really going to be all you can do. Just try and follow Godby and Scalu around. Now, Julia Scalu, we talked about the newcomer to the Echelon Racing League, the newcomer to RGT. Most of her virtual racing was on Zwift before this. She was the #1 ranked female in the world on Zwift, brought that talent over to RGT, but I have to think there's a learning curve, especially with so much racing on one platform. You learn to race a certain way for the better part of 2 years. It's going to be hard to break some of those habits. So I have to imagine Scalu is really focusing on trying to play the RGT game this week, because I think Godby has that just a little better dialed in than Julia.
Brad, I was told that there are 2 forms of learning, trauma and repetition. And she's probably getting both of those over these last couple of weekends. So I don't know which one she's learning from, but she'll figure it out.
Spoken like a true cyclist. Well, getting a good look at Jackie Godby here in her very familiar pain cave. We talked a lot about Godby's setup. She runs the time trial bike. We don't see her in the time trial bars a whole lot, but she does come from the triathlon world, so maybe just more comfortable on the time trial bike. There's just something to, being on the bike that you spend a lot of time on, that you spend the most time training on. So obviously comfortable with her setup.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we saw her a couple weeks ago, and you're right. Like, we never see her in her bars like a normal time trialist. Probably would feel more comfortable in that position. Usually, you set those bikes up specifically to be comfortable in the bars and your extensions. But yeah, for her to just be on the hoods the entire race. And I also wonder if she doesn't have the full bars, the drops, her horns are there for the brakes probably. So even when she's sprinting, that would throw it off just a little bit from a normal bicycle. So it's just interesting to see that that's her setup and that's what she's most comfortable with.
And you notice how intently she watches the screen, too. That's what that goes back to playing the game, like we were talking about. On the other platforms, you can get away with sort of drifting off. If you just keep that power going, you don't really need to stay on the screen. But the drafting is so important on RGT. That's why they really keep an eye on that screen. We'll see the drafting graphic in the upper left of the screen. We talked about this a little bit in week #1, but you'll see when riders start to get into a draft. We're following Jackie Godby right now, so she has no draft as the leader at the front of the race, but the riders behind her will be getting a notification that they're in the draft, and there's the ability to kind of try and maximize that draft out on course. That's a big part of playing the game. It's sort of a different type of gamification. It's not like the Super Mario Brothers gamification. It's more like chess gamification.
Yeah, exactly. And looks like we have a bit of an attack right now with Easler. And Godby's going to be right on top of that and maybe counterattack.
Yeah, and you see Julia Scalu there into third position, the white jersey just coming up into that group of 3. I think Megan Easler knows exactly what she wants to do right now. She's got a plan, and it involves taking Jackie and Julia with her. So I think she saw the opportunity, tried to get up there. Erin Ayala coming up now. This is another rider that could make it. Ayala had a really strong ride in week 1. She missed the break, missed the move, but was able to finish with a good sprint for a third-place podium finish. So if the timing can go right, Ayala might be able to make it here. The problem is everyone knows what they want to do. I mean, this is like saying, I'm just going to follow Lauren Hall and Gent Wevelgem, then I'll just get a free ride to the finish line, but it's not quite that easy. It's you have to be able to make it.
Sure it is. Sure, I don't know what they were doing. That was on them. They just weren't paying attention. Like you said, they must have just zoned out of the game for a hot second and just let me go. But, when Easler's making this attack, I wonder if, you're kind of poking the bear a bit and, just waiting for Jackie to attack or, I don't know. Sometimes I would just want to be in the background of like, maybe Jackie doesn't know we're back here. Maybe she won't go hard just yet. As a true sprinter saying this.
Yep. I would say your best case scenario here is that you can link up with one of those 2-star riders. You either link up with Godby or Skalou, and then you can, sort of form an alliance with them to get rid of the other one because they're going to want to get rid of the other leader, let's say. So, yeah, maybe, and you only need to get a little gap. I mean, once that gap goes over like 10 or 15 seconds, that's a big gap for someone like Skalou or Godby to come across. Strong they are. Once that gap goes over a certain point, it's very hard to bring that breakaway back. So if you can catch one of those riders off guard and get that split, probably your only hope of making it happen. 2 riders trying to get a split going here. Schumann and Rokkanen going to go with them. Ayala back in 5th, but you see it is starting to string out. So this is now or never right now for these riders. I'll tell you right now, this move is not coming back. If you're in the field, you got to get up to these 2 wheels.
Yeah, you see Skalou was putting in like a 7 watts per kilogram effort there, which is a pretty significant push. I think everybody's gearing up and trying to get a separation going.
Well, certainly some big targets on their back, that's for sure, but heavy is the head that wears the crown, as they say. It's a good little split here, good little group going. Now, this is the first selection, but the problem is you're going to need to make a few of these before this one works. You see that little group just dangling up the road? So that's 3 riders away with Miller, Godby, and Skalou up at the front. So it looks like Miller might be the new addition to this lead group. CMO O'Toole popping in up at the front. There's a lot of waiting. It's, a classic standoff situation, right? Who's going to do the work? Who's going to go get them? And if you don't cooperate in this group, you might be looking at letting first and second place go.
Yeah, again, any small gap like this kind of opening up, it just is, it's like Groundhog Day from 2 weeks ago. It's like, are we really going to let this happen again? Or are they letting it happen? And, maybe they're actually putting in forth a quality effort, and they're just like, you know what, just not happening again today. Yep. So we'll see.
I was going to say it's also important that they don't blow themselves up too early. It's obviously pretty easy to say, I'm just going to stay on Jackie Godby's wheel, and then after 15 minutes, you're on Jackie Godby's wheel, but you're toast, and that doesn't do you any good either. So I think this is probably the smart ride. These riders absolutely know their limits. I mean, they know what they can do for an hour. They're watching their power. They're watching their numbers and making sure that they don't put themselves in a box. Lauren, how well do you know your numbers? Can you pinpoint exactly how long you can be in these power zones? Are you watching your power meter constantly? Like, how exact do you know those limits?
In this situation, in virtual racing, unfortunately, yeah, you are probably looking at your power meter a bit more versus real life. You're kind of focusing on wind and people around you and movements, but those factors kind of take away the hurt that you're looking at your power meter and your heart rate. But yeah, like in virtual racing, you kind of have to focus on that, and yeah, you definitely know, your limits. I actually just did a workout yesterday on the trainer, and it's just not so much fun to just sit there and stare at the wall in your power meter. You don't have any outside factors kind of helping out and taking that stimulus away. But, at the same time, you can be extremely efficient and dialed and know, like, your limits, and this is where it's at. And, maybe you can go above those limits. But, yeah, you don't – unfortunately, you know exactly where your limits are in watts per kilogram.
We can see those watts per kilogram as well when we have the full screen view. We're able to see all the data for the riders. Really amazing to see, so much data being provided by these riders and these platforms. It's an insight that we as spectators have never gotten to see before. We're adding live power to the traditional TV broadcast now, but to be able to see that all the time and see the instant reaction on the screen is really cool to have access to all this data. It probably changed a lot for you, not to date your time in the professional Peloton, Lauren, but you saw a lot of technology come into, in your ear.
Yeah. Yes, I was in the era of power meters and heart rate. Thanks to Brad for throwing me under the bus. But no, but also I think it's very important as an athlete to not just focus on your power and your heart rate when you go out and ride and train. Like, you also have to know how to just pedal your bike without that information and knowing what that feels like, because that data is not always correct. Your heart rate strap doesn't work, or your power meter is broken, and you should know as a professional athlete that innate feeling of what 200 watts feels like, or what your endurance pace feels like. So, but yes, having all this data is extremely important for your coach-athlete relationship, and knowing how you can push those boundaries and to extend your limits. And then to reel it back in, or if something's going wrong, to really hone in on that. But this is definitely like streamlined training and made it a way more efficient process. And as a fan that I am now, to watch the sprints happen and watch Aaron not even be in the in the screen and then come out of nowhere and just flying in for third place, like, that's really, really cool to see.
Oh, that's Ayala right there at the front of group number 2 on the road. See Ayala riding for the Velocity Vixen squad, and then our 2 leaders on the left side of your screen. So we'll keep an eye on sort of both battles going on. Godby and Skalou, left side of the screen, probably locked in for the rest of the day today. The way that these 2 raced on week 1 did not give me the sense that they wanted to try and drop each other or try and get a split going. I think they pretty much just want to sprint it out at the end. I think Skalou wants a little rematch. Godby's probably feeling good after week number 1, so I think they're both in agreement that, let's try and wear each other out, and then we'll see. So.
Yeah, what we did see last race was Skalou did try and mix it up a little bit. At like 1 or 2 laps to go, there was a hill at our last race in Indy, and it was Wisconsin, excuse me, and just having that chance for her to try and attack and get that separation from Godby. And it didn't happen, but that's racing. I mean, just in real life as it is in e-racing, you got to take these chances. So they'll work together probably up until, like you said, to the end of this race, and then some sort of dynamic is going to take place, right, those last laps. Let's see if Skalou is going to try and sprint her at the end, or try and take a flyer with 1 lap to go. I don't know what's going to be different from this weekend versus last. And Skalou and Godby just continuing to increase this break here and increase their distance from the peloton, that's racing. This is what's happening, and it'll be interesting to see if Easler can talk to everybody and try and get them to all to work together and bring this back. It's now or never.
Yeah, you see the gap starting to grow. They are up over 200 meters right now, back to Megan Easler in 3rd position. We'll go ahead and call that Group 2. Easler, Miller, Rokkanen, Wagner, Ayala, all back there. Generally working together. I think they want to try and keep this break of 2 as close as they can for as long as they can before they bring it back. Julia Skalou, the front of this group, again, a new rider to the Echelon Racing League here in 2021. We learned a little bit about her as we sent Emma Watson out to catch up with Julia last week.
How did you start virtual racing?
About 2 years ago, Sebastian reached out and asked some women for his Team Beast mode. We found this team together, and we were just some German girls, started racing in community in Swift, and then in the first season we were good enough to reach Premium League, the highest league. Yeah, and that was the beginning, and for now we have bigger goals like the World Championships. Yes.
You've run on Zwift primarily. How is RGT races different from Zwift?
Draft is different. I think the draft is a little higher, but if you lose the draft, it's harder to get back. In Zwift, it's a little bit easier, I think. And then the curves in RGT are different to Zwift. You have to slow down, like in real life. In Zwift, you can you can do the curves like in the race pace. And in RGT, you always have to sprint after the curves, I think. Yes.
Does that change how you ride your races?
Yes, I have to learn to do more sprints in our actual training. We do these peak powers like 30-30s or 20-20s or so. To hit red lights.
Yeah. In the past two races, since we've only had two, you've been facing off against American Jackie Godby. How has that competition been for you?
She's very, very strong. We raced in Swift, and there was a little bit better than her on climbs, but she is the better sprinter. She has more absolute watts, and yeah, I think her technique is better than mine. Yeah, and I really think she's really strong and a good racer. She has more power than me.
So, Lauren, what can you do when you know you're matched up against a rider with more power? When you look at those numbers and say, she's just peaking at higher numbers than me, all Skalou can really do is try and compete on technique in this scenario.
Well, like she was talking about training the 30-30s or 20-20s, that peak power, adaptation, and hopefully that you can get better at your body kind of transforms a little bit and you can get better at that. And then she's also talking about the different platforms and, again, learning, repetition of how to use the corners and how it's different from other platforms. And so, yeah, I think the efficiency level will increase for Skalou. And, she said she's better on the climbs than Godby. So I don't know. You're going to have to figure out one of those courses to play to your advantage and some of those small 1% techniques to increase on.
No, Skalou going to be looking forward to the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic tomorrow. Our course tomorrow, much different than the criteriums that we've been doing earlier in the week because it's more of a road race. They have the climb in the middle, so I think Skalou going to be looking forward to that. Maybe less technique. You don't need to worry about as many corners on a road race course like we have for Iron Horse tomorrow. So I think Skalou is really looking forward to day two this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see if she can get that right. Horses for courses, Lauren. Everyone has their style of racing that they like. You're a sprinter, you're a climber, you're a puncher, whatever you are. I think Skalou wants to have those long, sustained power battles with Jackie Godby.
Yeah, and like she said, she's known Godby from another platform as well. So these two are elevating each other in their training and in their racing. So this is good to see. It raises the bar for both of them.
Well, it's nice to see the Echelon Racing League continuing to grow with more and more riders coming in to try and match the champs. I think a lot of riders watched Jackie Godby ride away in season one and said, hey, I think I can challenge that. I'm going to give Jackie Godby a try. So new riders coming into RGT, coming into the Echelon Racing League. We're also welcoming new riders this year in our para and hand cycling series in the Echelon Racing League. They've been working behind the scenes with Paralyzed Veterans of America, RGT, and of course Project Echelon, a veterans organization, to help get those avatars into the game. And they just recently launched those, I think yesterday. We have from Project Echelon and the Echelon Racing League, Eric Hill with us this afternoon, who's actually getting ready to race later. So Eric, thanks for taking the time. You must be so proud to see those hand cycles out rolling around in our virtual worlds in RGT. This has been a long time coming for you guys at Project Echelon.
Yeah, I was really first exposed to this world at Tour of America's Dairyland and Valley of the Sun, and being able to see hand cyclists compete there in real life. And it's just so inspiring to see these men and women with disabilities overcoming them and showing us what they're capable of. And being able to reproduce that in the virtual world, create more accessibility, visibility, and equitability for those individuals means a great deal to us. And we're so thankful to be able to work with Paralyzed Veterans of America, have the support of USA Paracycling, and then to be able to work with RGT to make it come to life. It's truly something special.
This obviously goes hand in hand with your mission at Project Echelon: educate, equip, and empower veterans through physical activity. I have to imagine you are really opening a lot of doors now to connect with those veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we work with Paralyzed Veterans of America at Project Echelon. One of our missions and one of our goals through our mission is to connect with other veterans organizations and help lift each other up. We know we can't be all things to all people. We need to stay in our lane and do what we do well. But we had this platform in RGT. They had a community that wanted to be better represented and have the opportunity to compete like our able-bodied athletes. And so to bring them here and give them that opportunity just means the world to us.
Right on. Well, we're going to see those on course here in just a little bit. Our para and hand cyclists will be racing with our pro men's field later today on our second slot. So we are just about 30 minutes away from seeing those out in our first official competition with the new RGT avatars. So, Eric, congratulations and thanks for the hard work to everyone at RGT, PVA, and, of course, Project Echelon. So proud to be a part of this organization.
Yeah, thank you, guys. And, hey, this women's race started out hot today. It was really great to see some of those women figure out how Godby was getting off the line and stick with her for a little bit longer. I'm excited to see how our hand cyclists, our paracyclists, and our men continue.
Well, things starting to heat up on the front. Thank you very much, Eric. I know he's got to get ready for his race. Also going to be racing in our elite men's race coming up next here. So Godby and Skalou have made the split here. Lauren, gap is growing. We're up to 350 meters back now. You can see on the left side of the screen, it shows the distance to the riders in front of them. We're following Jackie Godby right now as Julia Skalou putting in a little bit of an attack here. Both riders into the red zone. Skalou trying to catch Godby off guard.
Yeah, try it however you can. Hey, I was expecting they were going to ride together up until the end of the race, but hey, what do we know? Take a flyer. You never know. Catch her off guard. Maybe she's taking a drink of water, looking at Zoom. Who knows?
I can tell you it's working because I'm watching Jackie Godby in Zoom getting out of her saddle, which she very rarely does. She doesn't like to stand up. She doesn't like to get out of that sort of time trial comfortable position. So when you see Godby getting out of the saddle, you know it's for real. So it is on at the front of this one right now. You see Godby finally made the catch, and now she might throw in a counterattack here. Godby is a killer through and through. She is a vicious racer, so I wouldn't be surprised to see her try to go over the top of Julia Skalou here. And then look at this. They go back into the easy power zones now.
Right, yeah.
I'm watching
we're back to a truce.
Yep. The color bars below their name will indicate the current power zone that they are riding in. Each rider has a unique zone, but the game knows the riders. It's a general where each of those power zones will go in the group. So you see the color bar to the left of their name in the bottom right of the picture lighting up. When it's green or blue, it's a little easier, and as it gets closer to red, that's obviously a harder effort. So Godby and Skalou, I think you're right. Called a little truce here after that brief time spent in the red zone between their VO2 max capacity and what they call the pain zone, which is your maximum effort possible. And now Godby back into the red zone here.
That's what I was going to say, Brad. I love that it's like capacity and then just straight pain. That's the description.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's a scientific term. I don't know if that's, if that's the term they use in the lab when you go to get your VO2 max testing and all that stuff, but I think that's the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Speaking from experience, yes, it is. That's exactly how you describe it.
Lauren, explain a VO2 max test to us and sort of how we get to this number. It's something that most pro cyclists have to do, and it's also oftentimes one of the least enjoyable things they have to do throughout the season.
It's death on wheels. But it's such a good measurement. It's a good test. It's a very controlled test. So then again, you can use those numbers to talk to your coach and base the rest of your season and training off of those numbers. And it just essentially you're on a trainer. You're kind of you've got a mask on your face. They're testing your oxygen, your heart rate. They'll do a blood lactate test, and essentially it just gets harder and harder and harder until there's failure. And it just, you think, oh, I can do this all day. And then they kind of ramp it up and you're like, okay, I feel this, but I can still sustain this. And then all of a sudden it's just, all red, pain, pain, pain. And they're just telling you, you're doing great, keep going, while they're plucking your ear and testing your numbers and you're slobbering all over yourself. It's horrible. But it is a very important number and thing to do. It's not something you have to do as an athlete, but it does help. Again, we go back to this efficiency of having all this data and these numbers. But in the end, if you have to know how to pedal your bike and you have to be happy pedaling your bike. So, all that to play in. But yeah, it's something that I've done once in my career. And when they asked me if I wanted to ever do it again, and I said, no.
Well, I can say that's one place I have you beat in the cycling world because I've done two. I did a research study in college where they tracked like 2 data points. So, and I puked 50% of the time in my VO2 max testing. So I was 1 for 2.
Helped with your bike packing trips?
No, I try to avoid hitting anywhere near my VO2 max when I go out for a ride these days. I'm a much older man now.
Me too.
Well, we saw a little bit of attacking coming out of this group. Schumann was into the red zone. They were trying to get some splits going, but it looks like it has come back together. The Germans have been really aggressive here in the Echelon Racing League. This beast mode presented by Rose Team, a new squad to the Echelon Racing League in 2022, but man, have they made their mark. That is also the team of Julia Skalou. You see all those German flags on the leaderboard to the left, all those white jerseys. Those are all beast mode Rose riders, so they definitely know what they're doing. They know how to ride in a group. They know how to ride well. And they know how to thrive on these esports platforms.
Yeah, we saw last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, Schumann that was actually trying to bridge up to Shalau, and it ended up not working out, but this is an interesting team, and like Shalau was talking about in her interview, they've kind of come up through e-racing together from Zwift over to Echelon Racing League. So, and it sounds like they may train together as well. And so again, this dynamic of a good team working together and hopefully doing those 30-30s, 20-20s, and it takes a village to beat Godby apparently, and nobody seemed to have done it yet. So.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if it might take more than one rider to beat Jackie Godby. We'll see how this weekend goes for Julia Skalou. But, if she doesn't start putting some victories up on the board, I have to think that starts getting frustrating.
Yes and no. I think it's still just good racing, good training, and learning, like she said she's doing. So, just keep at it, and you got to keep trying, and she will. And it probably does get a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, I think she can probably see these little metrics that she is increasing on and getting better at, and the whole team as well. like Eric was talking about, all these women have figured out kind of how to start and match Godby's effort. So yeah, it's a learning curve. It seems like quite the process.
Godby and Skalou back to their truce. And then we see the Easler, Ayala, Wagner group on the right-hand side of the screen. Noticing the riders on the left are two leaders. See how closely they stick together. Again, this is trying to follow the draft, trying to maximize the draft that you can. There's an element of just trying to be as efficient as possible. I think that's probably what Skalou is doing right now, just locking right on to the rear wheel of Godby.
Yeah, they seem a bit more controlled than the group to the right. Easler, yeah, you see, like you said, you're talking about the colors, and that tells you a lot about the efforts having to be put in. And it's kind of a little bit all over the map. We see reds and yellows and blues, but yeah, you see Godby and Shalou is kind of steady Eddie. So yeah, I wonder if they're kind of falling apart in the back or just trying to figure out how to settle in.
Easler is having a little snack on Zoom right now, adding some calories to the tank, so that might explain the brief drop to the back. Over an hour-long race, Lauren, I mean, would you normally be eating? What would your nutrition plan be like for an hour-long competition?
Yeah, probably not so much, but like we saw with Erin, and we were trying to figure out what she was eating, and it's those quick energy sources of just almost like straight sugar, because it's obviously they're maximing out their effort and levels, and so yeah, you're burning through that glucose really fast. It's not this slow burn endurance pace. This is going really hard and off, and really hard and off, and so yeah, you're going to want to hit that sugar, and it will help, yes.
I'm not sure if you can see this on the Zoom, Lauren, but I think there's a dog licking Megan Easler's hand.
No, I can't see this.
It's at the very bottom left. It's going to be her right hand at the bottom left of our view. Try and make it a little bigger here. It's like every once in a while I just see a pink tongue come into view.
We all need motivation and support somehow.
Yeah. Well, it can be tough trying to race in these unique environments. I have to imagine getting yourself hyped up when you're in the bedroom or the home office or the garage, wherever you are. It's not quite the same as race day when you show up and there's the PA and all the signage. It's probably first mode.
Yeah, having that stimulus of the fans there and your family there cheering you on, and the noise and the chaos. Yeah, it's a little bit different for sure. And I don't know about you, but when I'm on my trainer or doing my workout or virtual workout, I definitely have every stimulus I can. I usually have a bike race going with the racing platform up, with music blaring. My poor neighbors are probably wondering what's going on over here.
Whatever it takes to get your pain cave dialed in. A lot of riders have spent significant amounts of time and resources getting their pain caves all set up. I guess if you know you're going to be spending a lot of time anywhere, you want to invest in your environment a little bit. So we've been seeing lights and fans and all kinds of setups being built in various places around the home.
Yeah, like you said, whatever it takes to keep you motivated. We've seen some of the guys have their numbers pinned on the back of the walls. And yeah, just whatever it takes.
Skalou back into the red zone here. Godby responding. Did see Jackie racing in our community league as well, sort of just getting the season kicked off earlier in the year. Each week, the Echelon Racing League hosts community events open to all riders on RGT. It happens the week before the pro race, so we kind of alternate weeks between pro racing and community racing. You can find more information at echelonracingleague.com. If you want to jump into the community league, you don't have to do the whole series. You don't have to do the whole season. If you just want to jump in for a few, you can find all the information there. So, Lauren, it's not too late for you to get into the Echelon Racing League, but we need you behind the mic, so you're going to have to just race the community leagues, and then you can come back and commentate the pro leagues.
Unless you want some heavy breathing in the peloton, which nobody wants on this virtual platform. Trust me.
Speaking of heavy breathing, we are monitoring some of the Discord channels of some of the teams here in the Echelon Racing League. They've given us access to their back channel that a lot of teams use to communicate on the Discord app. So we're going to be listening into that throughout the day. If we hear anything interesting, we'll bring it to you. But there is a lot of heavy breathing involved in team communications. You're not always communicating. So if we get something, we'll bring it to you on Discord. A little bit of a split happening here. Some riders going in the red zone. Easler having to close the gap. Ayala doing a nice job as well. It looks like Easler going to go right over the top of him. This looks like Beast Mode Rose, I think, is the aggressor in this group. I think Schumann was the one that really started. She's got Wagner with her. But I do not think that this group is content to sit in. I think the Beast Mode Rose riders have a very specific style of racing, and it is not a relaxed style of racing. Let's say that.
That's good. It brings a good dynamic to racing, and especially when you've had Ayala getting on the podium in the last two races. That, again, just like we're trying to figure out what Skalou and Godby are going to do and try and outplay each other, the same thing is happening back here, and trying to figure out how you're going to beat Erin in a sprint. So they're probably going to put her under a bit of a pressure to see if they can't wear her down a bit and make some separation is what I'm guessing that they're probably thinking.
Ayala definitely has that sprint figured out. I mean, she showed in week one that she has figured out the platform. She's figured out when to go. She's figured out the timing. You don't get lucky twice on RGT. I mean, you don't have that good of a sprint 2 days in a row. So she obviously has a very good grasp of how to use the power in that finishing sprint. And I'm guessing that's just from experience and the ability to just read the game and understand very quickly how these dynamics work.
Agreed, Brad, yeah.
So a lot of this is just trying to keep yourself as fresh as you can. You see most riders in the green or blue zones. Somewhere around 2 to 3 watts per kilogram. That's a good sort of average number. That's your daily cruising pace, let's say. You can do these numbers, let's say 3 watts per kilogram, easily for a few hours out on the road. But once you start getting up into the 3, 4, 5, 6 watts per kilogram zone, that's where you can only hold it for a certain amount of time. And that's why the power numbers and power zones are so important. Be watching the riders trying to regulate their power. You see the Saris power zones again up in the upper left-hand corner. So pretty easy up at the front right now. But, man, when they go red quickly. I mean, it's a quick, sharp snap. These riders doing somewhere between 4 and 5 watts per kilo on the front. And that's the measure that we use to figure out how much power the riders are creating relative to how much they weigh. Obviously, a bigger rider needs to create more power to go the same speed as a lighter rider. And so we use the watts per kilogram measurement as a fair assessment, a fair comparison between riders, because obviously each rider weighs a different weight, and so they need to do a different power to move that weight at the same speed. So we use watts per kilogram as sort of a normalized measurement of power. And you'll see averages somewhere between 3 and 4, and sprints go up to like 6 or 7. Lauren, like what's the highest watts per kilo that you would hit? Like what's a sprint watt per kilo?
I don't know, because I'm always just with my head down. Sprinting.
Yeah, your head is down. You're seeing television.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you kind of going back to like that it's easier. Is quantifiable of. 2 watts per kilo is easy, 3 watts per kilo is easy. It's not necessarily that easy, is it? But no, what I do love about this platform is that you do have to calibrate before every race, and that you do have to weigh in, and that you have to, I think that's just good, fair racing in virtual world. So it is, the watts per kilo is a good way to see the race play out in numbers versus like watching the riders. And then, like you said, look up at the top left corner, heart rate. I max out at like 180 heart rate. So seeing someone just sustain 170 beats per minute is impressive. Granted, they are probably younger than me, but but you know they are putting forth quite the effort. And again, like we're talking about, just sitting on the trainer and you're staring at the race, and just you're missing that stimulus. So all that kind of plays in mentally. So I imagine, we're talking. I would have some good music going right now to keep me motivated.
See a lot of riders starting to race outside as well. The constant battle to regulate your body temperature is another big part of virtual racing. You have to control what you can control, right? And so the setup in the pain cave to try to stay as cool as possible has become an important factor in a lot of people's training setups as well, or racing setups. I saw Jackie Godby was trying on some new bibs that had built-in ice storage, so that you can slip the ice like packs into the sort of mesh that goes over your shoulders, and then they have on the legs as well. So I guess anything you can do to stay cool, but I have to imagine that would help a lot. You get a little bit of airflow going over that, put the fan on it, keep that evaporative cooling going. So new technology emerging here in the Echelon Racing League. Yeah.
That's great. Huh. Yeah, I usually, when you think about the fan aspect because usually it's the wind chill factor when you're out riding your bike, and that's so important of keeping your body core temperature down. So fan placement is also really important. I find that if I have it too far down on my feet just get cold, where my upper body and my torso is just on fire. So I think it's super important to keep your torso and around your heart as cool as possible. So I wonder, if we can see a couple of pain caves and see some of the fans, probably not the fans, but I mean, like you're saying, you can get a better judge of what's going on by looking at Godby's shorts, apparently.
I'm not sure if I think she was prototyping shorts. I'm not sure if these are the shorts in question. You got to try stuff out before you give it the full go in competition. You don't ride your brand new bike the first day. Got to go out and train on it a little bit.
That's right.
You also see she has that custom Ceres setup, that Ceres desk in front of her. And then we've been seeing a lot of riders moving to the Ceres boards as well. You kind of float on top of this rocker board, if you will. It gives it just a little bit more natural feeling to the ride. Got to be back into focus mode here. She's got 2 bottles on the table as well. I'm guessing one would be drink mix and one would be regular water.
Yeah, personal preference. I'm not quite sure. And 2 bottles would be I guess you would probably go through a bottle and a half during this race, potentially.
All right, well, Jackie Godby continuing to push on here on the front with Julia Skalou. These two continuing to grow their gap as they go up over 300 meters ahead, and the field continuing to chase. We're going to take a quick break here in the Echelon Racing League, enjoy some photos from some of the talented photographers in the Gateway Cup. Always great images coming out of the race each year. And you can see why this becomes such a popular race. So we'll leave you with these and take a quick break here in the Echelon Racing League, and we'll be back with more live coverage of our elite women's field after this.
My name is Dr. Alan Lim. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I've spent most of my career working with professional cyclists. For years, I've been getting riders to ride on static trainers that don't move. But now, with the Infinity technology by Ceres on the MP1 platform, you have fore-aft movement as well as side-to-side movement that ultimately greatly enhances comfort. Every single contact point can move in a more natural way. And over the long haul, what that means is you don't get beat up by your static trainer. With just that little bit of motion, you start to replicate what you feel in the outdoors, and that changes the entire experience. I think that one of the big reasons for that is that we're naturally tuned to want to move. Our vestibular system, when it's activated, ends up, creating, I think, a sense of harmony or joy that just isn't the same when you're not able to move. It's like the difference between a rocking chair versus a static chair. And a lot of it, I think, is about expectation, because when you get it on a bicycle, you expect it to move. And so when you get on the MP1 platform with the Infinity technology, you get that same level of movement. 6 degrees side to side, 9.5 inches fore and aft. And what that does is it creates an experience that is just so much more enjoyable, so much more fun than being on a static trainer. When you look at the design of the MP1 platform, it's not just designed for the H3 trainer by Ceres. It's also designed to be compatible with almost every new smart trainer currently on the market. So if you don't own the H3, but you have your own trainer at home, odds are this will be compatible with the MP1. Another unique feature of the Infinity technology on the Ceres MP1 platform is that it's best in class. You have 6 degrees of side-to-side motion and 9.5 inches of fore-aft motion. That's movement that specifically replicates what you feel outdoors, and there's no other competitor on the market that can simulate that type of movement. It's certainly not the kind of movement that you can get by just putting tennis balls under your trainer. Cycling isn't just about your legs and your lungs. It's also about being able to handle the bicycle, and that takes a lot of control in both your core as well as all of these small stabilizer muscles. On an indoor trainer that is static, you're just not getting any of that specificity. But with the Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform, you are able to use and have to use all of those stabilizers to control the bicycle. The net effect is that not only do you get a workout for your legs and your lungs, but you also get a workout for your core. The Infinity technology built into the MP1 platform creates the best-in-class movement for any trainer system. You've got 6 degrees of side-to-side movement, 9.5 inches of fore-aft movement, and the net result is way more comfort, way more fun, the ability to use your core or stabilizer muscles, and you've got a platform that is compatible with most trainers.
Come on, move. Of course, there aren't any spots. A few minutes won't hurt anybody. Thanks, Grandma.
Paralyzed Veterans of America works tirelessly every day to create a more accessible America. Let's leave the accessible spaces to the people who actually need them. Whatever the reason, excuses don't excuse. Join PVA and be part of the solution. Honor the spot.
And welcome back. Good look at Jackie Godby's training setup. We saw that piece on the Ceres trainer. You see her desk, and we talked about her position on the time trial bike as well. What we have not seen is Jackie Godby's fan setup. That's the million-dollar question, is how is she cooling herself? I know she's got airflow because I see that towel hanging from her left handlebar there. So I'm guessing that fan is set up low, Lauren, trying to keep her cool. Also seeing Godby with the sweat catcher going across the top tube there. That catches any sweat dripping down. Try to protect the frame a little bit. It's amazing how corrosive sweat can be. Did you ever have a set of handlebars rust out on you, Lauren, on a training bike?
Heck no. Hopefully I don't. No, I don't want to joke about this because a lot of people do spend their a lot of time on the trainer now. Thanks a lot, COVID, and just wintertime. But it is super important, at the end of the trainer season to go to your local bike shop, take your bar tape off, wash your bike, because usually there's a ton of sweat that you don't realize that goes through those towels. So yeah, it's super important to give it a look over your bike, a good look over before you head out on the road.
I've seen so many horror stories from mechanics that have these bikes brought in. I thought I was bad because occasionally I don't wash the bike before I bring it in, but I can't imagine turning over a sweated out pair of handlebars. Yikes. All right, Godby and Skalou are gone. They are now over a kilometer ahead of the chasers here, so this one is not coming back. This will be these two, and really, it's just a matter of waiting for one to crack. Same story back in the main field, or in the race for third, we'll call it. Yep. Looks like this is going to go down to 7 riders, I think, in this group. And so we'll keep an eye on that number and see if they start to drop off the back. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it felt like for most of this race, they were pretty close to Godby and Skalou, but now it seems, they've kind of settled down and here we go, the fight for third with almost less than 12K to go. So, yeah, those Skalou and Godby seem to have cracked them a little bit.
Erin Ayala's got to be licking her chops right now, saying, hey, I got a chance to do what I do best, sprint against these riders that I beat just 2 weeks ago. So she knows she can do it. You got that little confidence boost. There's something to some confidence watts when you're winning.
Yeah, no doubt. And I would think that Schumann and that crew, Wagner, are going to have to put in some attacks here and just kind of whittle down the field and increase their chances against Erin, and just keep attacking her specifically. And then a byproduct of that is to whittle down anybody else in this group.
And just as you say that, some riders going into the red on the front. Schumann and Miller, again, the beast mode Rose riders. Here comes Wagner with some reinforcements. And then you see Isler, Ayala, just trying to hang on here. Rokkanen also stuck dead in the center. Now the game, as you see the riders spread out kind of 6 wide here, the game will occasionally move a rider to your side. If you're in a big group, it tries to create sort of a peloton look or peloton feel. So it's really hard to ride in a single file line. That's why you're not seeing like a 7-rider pace line. It's just almost impossible to do on RGT because the game will move the riders around a little bit to give it more of a peloton or group feel, if you will. So you can only dial it in so far in terms of trying to manage that balance of drafting and following the wheel in front of you. Rogers doing a great job on the front here, setting tempo. First time we've seen the Canadian make an appearance and control the pace here. There's a look inside Erin's training setup. Looks like she's got a trainer bike and an outdoor bike. You always got to have the spare on deck behind.
Yeah, just never know when you might want to swap it out real fast.
And then we also haven't talked about the importance of the sweat. Maybe second or third most important thing in the training setup. Keep that sweat off your face.
Also, Brad, just thinking about looking at her cadence and her pedal stroke, seems again, this is just personal preference. I was more of a spin to win individual. I'd like to be around 85, 90 RPMs, and she's low 70s.
She's doing 68 right now. Yep.
Uh-huh.
You can see the RPMs on the RGT screen. That's in the upper left corner with their heart rate and power. So, yeah, this is a bigger gear that she's pushing, which means she has to do less rotations to keep the speed up. But, yeah, personal preference for each individual rider. We'll see if we can pop around this group. Maybe we'll check some of the various cadences being ridden. We're following Rogers on the front right now, doing about 70. But I have to think there's some riders in here that are going to be pushing a higher cadence, more similar to what Lauren would have ridden. Wow, this group has really got it figured out. This is not an easy thing to do on RGT. To ride in this steady of a group, I mean, these are 7 extremely talented players on RGT right now. And I call them players because there is an element of this game of RGT, just like any other video game. You have to learn the rules. You have to understand how the game works. And these riders got it figured out.
Yeah, it's definitely a game, and that's what makes it fun, essentially putting in these efforts. If you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it.
I'm sure fun is a relative term throughout the day. If you ask them if they're having fun with like 3K to go, you might get a different answer.
Yeah, for sure.
You see Easler out of the saddle here.
Also just kind of breaks it up being out of the saddle. I mean, you know, the virtual world, you can essentially sit and put out the power you need to up until that sprint point. So just standing up kind of mimics real life riding and riding outdoors, just kind of mix it up a little bit, because the interesting thing about virtual world is there's never a downhill. So you're never off the pedals ever. So standing up can essentially help that situation a little bit of just kind of mixing it up a little bit and relaxing your upper body.
Yeah, stretch out your back a little bit. I would think that starts to get pretty stiff after an hour or so on the trainer. Just kind of straighten it out. The other thing we talked about last week was the technical element of virtual racing. Got to make sure your Wi-Fi is dialed in. You got a good Bluetooth connection. Your trainer is connecting to the game, and everything is reading. It's a whole new world out there in virtual racing. We have seen a lot of riders continue to dial in their setups.
And have you ever gotten on the trainer and you started 10 minutes in and then you forgot to turn your fan on, or you forgot your towel, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. I'm stopping.
And if you get off that bike, I mean, if you stop putting power into this game for even 5 seconds, you do not have enough time to unclip, get off the bike, turn a fan on, and get back on. Because by the time you do that, the group you're with is gone. So just like in real life, I mean, if you can imagine stopping your bike in the middle of a 26-mile-an-hour race, getting off, try to adjust something, and then get back on, that group is gone, and they're not coming back. So, yeah, you got to have everything dialed in before the race starts.
Just like pinning your numbers, having your drink bottle mix ready. Yeah,
Yep.
Same situation, different platform.
There was an issue with one rider in Season 1 that forgot to crate the dog, forgot to put the dog away, and the dog was going wild, and it was like, I got to take care of the dog. I got to take him out. So that affected the race. I also watched a rider once take a work Zoom call flawlessly
No.
without anybody knowing. It was exceptional.
That is skill.
What they don't know
yeah,
won't
Brad,
hurt
do you
them.
have the TPS reports done? We're going to need those by Monday.
Yeah, I'm working so hard on them. I'm pushing 180 beat per minute heart rate. Well, Gabi looking really comfortable here. She never really shows weakness. Again, as a triathlete, she's used to these long, sustained efforts. She's an endurance athlete through and through.
Yeah, you never see her crack. Or,
I was going to say, we talked about her research last week.
Face.
Yeah. I wonder if there's an element of knowing that the other riders can see them on Zoom, right? I mean, would you try and watch the other riders? Do you want to see the other riders as a competitor? Like, would you be keeping on Julia Scalu in this situation? Would you keep her in a little Zoom window just to try and keep an eye on her?
I think that's an outstanding idea and very important. Again, your avatar, you can't tell what this person's doing, but if you can actually see them in real life and kind of, again, see that quote-unquote poker face and maybe what they're looking like, or, again, the dog factor, or if they're taking a drink.
As soon as you see that dog show up on Zoom, start attacking.
It's all, this is all real-life practicality. This is bike racing in the end. I want that NFT, so no holds bar here.
Yeah. So here's another one. I was talking with Eric Hill, race director here in the Echelon Race League earlier. They had windstorms come through over the last week. We got some of them up in Chicago at the Cyclocross National Championships, but a lot of the internet service was knocked out for Eric's neighborhood. And so he was saying, I had to get the phones together. We were using the phone hotspot, not sure if it was going to work. That's the kind of stuff. You wake up, your internet's out. You got to find, you can't race at Starbucks, so you got to find a place where, you can use that solid internet.
Yeah, could you imagine that setup outside
in the parking lot of a Starbucks
restaurant or something? Yeah. Don't mind us. We're gonna have our easy up tent. The team's here. It's all good. We're just using your Wi-Fi.
I've yet to see the first van life virtual racing crossover. I'm sure it's coming at some point, but somebody will put the virtual setup inside of a camper van, the cool vans that everyone's building right now. It's only a matter of time.
3.5K. Are you expecting Scalau to put in another digger, or do you think she's going to try and roll it in with Godby and go for a sprint?
Well, Scalau attacked first in week 1, so I'm not sure if she changes the scenario here. Say that she was recognizing that Godby was probably the stronger rider. So when you're in a situation like this, the other rider has the better raw power. I mean, what is the ideal way to play this?
I think you just keep trying multiple tactics. They're going to race again tomorrow. They raced 2 weeks ago, and you just got to keep trying every way possible to beat somebody until you kind of crack that code. So, whatever it takes, and just keep practicing and keep at it. You never know what's going to happen or when Jackie's just going to have a bad day. So, to be determined.
2.7K to go now. Godby and Scalu both go into the red zone. We'll see if they hold this for the remainder of these 2.5K to go here, or if they have to let off at some point. They're going to be working their way through some lap traffic here, so you may see them passing some riders. They do keep lap riders on course in the virtual world. They may even go past the third place group. We saw that happen last week. They kind of finished together. In that scenario, unlike in real-life bike racing, the chase group will continue and finish their full distance. A lot of times we'll finish everybody on the leader's lap in a IRL bike race, but here on RGT, the chasers will go around and do the full distance, even if these two have finished up.
Right.
Again, we talked about trying to dial in your perfect setup for virtual racing. Scalu does not call into the Zoom calls because she has limited bandwidth where she's racing, so she wants to make sure all of the internet data power is focused on RGT and doesn't want to tax the network too much. So you work with what you got, And obviously the racing is the most important thing, but we do have a good look at Jackie Godby her throughout the day.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. If you're going to put forth this much effort to be here for racing today, you definitely don't want to drop out just because of a Zoom call or something like that. So yeah, not having her own Zoom is okay, but as long as she shows up to race.
Locked in wheel to wheel here between the two. 1.6K to go. Sprint probably doesn't happen until they go inside 1K. Godby into second position here. I would think Skalou would want to follow Godby here and try and attack from behind. I mean, that would be the most classic sort of, just like on a track match sprint or something like that where you come in. You want to be in that second position because you want to be drafting and then try and come around that lead rider at the last minute. But maybe 1.6K is a little early to be fighting for those positions now.
No, I think you're exactly right. Like if Skalou could play her cards right, she probably should sit on. I mean, she hadn't figured out how to beat Godby yet, so the best tactic would be to sit on and to let Godby pull it as much as possible and try and just get any advantage over her as possible with these last 2 kilometers. So, but yeah, that's a good call, Brad.
We got to try something to beat the champ. Here we go, inside 1K to go. As Godby will go P1, Skalou into P2 here. Waiting, down to 850. And I'm just waiting for one of those names to light up red. That'll be the first rider to go. You see they're both in the light blue zone right now, so they're just watching each other, just matching the power. Who's going to go first? 700 meters now. Godby out of the saddle a little bit, still not in the red zone. Looks like they're trying to tap from the down to 500 meters. Last turn. It'll scrub a little bit of power off here.
Wait.
Work their way around the S-bend. And here's Godby into the red zone. All right, this is it. 375 meters to go. Godby is all in. Now Skalou goes to the front. Will she be able to go early at 300 meters now? Godby might be in trouble here. Down to 150. Godby closing the gap. She's going to get on to Skalou's wheel. And it looks like Skalou went just a little early this week as Jackie Godby will take another win in the Echelon Racing League. All the credit in the world to Skalou, though. I mean, you had to try something. You had to throw some watts at the problem. But in the end, Jackie Godby has a 3rd win in 3 races in the Echelon Racing League.
That was close. That was so close, Brad. I really thought Skalou had it this time today. I feel like that was kind of the perfectly timed sprint, and she did. Oh man, just 50 meters, 100 meters maybe, and she would have had it. What a good comeback for Godby. That was either she's got nerves of steel or got lucky, but that was well played.
Skalou's going to get it. She's going to figure it out eventually. The way that she's racing, it's only a matter of time before she eventually figures out how to crack the code on Jackie Godby. All right, here's the race for 3rd. Still sorting out one more podium position as we take a look at the riders in this group. There's Ayala making her way up to the front, who I would say is the best sprinter out of this group. If I had to pick a name of these 7 riders, I would go Ayala here.
Yeah, for sure. Beast mode should definitely just be attacking one after the other right now. Just trying to limit their losses and call out Aaron as much as possible. But yeah, Aaron's sitting in. They're going to ride around. They got a K.5 to go. I'm surprised that they haven't started attacking yet.
It's amazing that this group was able to stick together. Easler a little bit off the back here. She'll close that gap down to 1K. Brokanen into the red zone early and 900 meters out.
You can see definitely a lot of nervous riders because they'll jump in and out of the red pretty often and then go back straight to green, trying to get good position.
There's certainly an art to that as well as we come to 700 meters to go. Still waiting for that big sprint to come. It happened at about 300 meters for Julia Skalou and Jackie Godby. Up to 600 meters now. Still spread out, using the full width of the road. Ayala in the very back position, coming up the left side of the group now. All right, and here we go. Down to 300 meters to go. Everybody going in the red zone out of this corner. The last one, now the finish line in sight. Rokkanen gets to the front. Ayala's got 150 meters to get there. Here comes Easler trying to move up. Rokkanen's got a nice lead. Here comes Ayala again, the patented late surge from Erin Ayala.
Ayala taking it again. Man, she's just gotten so crafty at these sprints and knowing when to go. This time we saw her come from the pack, not from the back, from the pack to the front. She probably made it a little bit easier on herself today, getting that third spot rounding out the podium. Beast mode rounding out the top 10, filling in that top 10, which was a good race by them and their team. So it's good to see them filling up the group and coming in with some more riders coming into the finish here. A lot of the beast mode athletes.
All right, as these riders finish up, it sounds like we have our race winner, Jackie Godby, in the Zoom room. So let's go over to Emma Watson with our race winner.
The winner of today's race, Jackie Godby, making it 3 for 3 so far in the season. How does this win feel for you, Jackie?
Well, 1, my legs are exhausted. 2, it was another fun, exciting race. You know, getting to go head-to-head with Shalao again is always fun. Seeing more people in the field that I got to race with last year. You know, like I say, it's fun to go head-to-head with great riders. It's fun to go head-to-head with these amazing outdoor power sprinters and put myself on the line every time. So a lot of fun today.
Speaking of that head-to-head matchup, it came down to the wire once again. You gave a little bit of a fist bump in the last 500 meters. What was your mindset going into that last sprint?
Here it is, all the chocolates on the line, go, 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 go. And then I just see red. You know, I think it would be safe to say there's not a lot of blood going to my head when I'm putting it all into my legs. It's sort of like a blackout moment. You hope, you pray that all your training comes out in this moment, and then you cross the line, you feel the resistance go down, you open your eyes and hope it's a surprise present for you.
Speaking a little bit of chocolate, my last question for you today is you showed a little bit of what you were eating throughout the match. Can you show that off again once more time?
Oh, yeah. And it's special chocolate today. It's got bits of peppermint in it because 'tis the season, and I have fun changing it up. So I will be having some more of this as I cool down.
Awesome. A winner's breakfast. Congratulations to you, Jackie Godby. We'll see you next race.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Oh, you know it's getting serious when Jackie Godby brings out the seasonal chocolate. That is some serious race prep.
That's awesome. And you got to wonder if she's starting to get a little bit nervous about Shalao coming and racing with her, but it doesn't seem like it's bothering her at all, and she really enjoys the racing, and the stoke factor is definitely there. It's good to see.
Shalao's on Amazon ordering some peppermint chocolate right now. She's like, I got to try some of that for the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic tomorrow. All right, Jackie Godby gets a win by just under a second. Erin Ayala ends up in third place. Megan Easler into fourth for Project Echelon Racing. And then Velocity Vixen gets another one into the top 5 with Anna Rogers. Rokkanen ends up in sixth. And then we saw the second group, Kim Miller, and on down the line with Schuler Wagner and Evie Marie Herring getting up into the top 10 as well. Nice.
think that was also a great race by Megan Easler today, too. I think she'll be a pretty dynamic individual coming after Erin in the future.
Yeah, and again, these battles are just getting deeper and deeper. We'll call them rivalries, starting to get a little heavier and heavier. We know Godby and Skalau starting to form it, but I think Ayala, Easler, Rogers, Rokinen, this is going to turn into a great battle this season. So we're going to be watching those closely. Also noticed Emma O'Toole having a rough day today. She was in the top 10 in the first 2 races. The Project Echelon rider did not make that split, so we'll see if we can figure out what happened to Emma O'Toole out there. It's so hard to keep racing consistently every single day. It never gets any easier out there. All right, good look at the front of our pro men's field, getting ready, getting warmed up as we are just about 5.5 minutes away from their next race coming up here. We're also going to have our paracycling and hand cycling in our next set of races. We'll always have them in the second slot of racing here in the Echelon Racing League. So cool to see our paracyclist in the Zoom chat. And again, Lauren, we are debuting the paracycling avatars on RGT today.
Yeah, just seeing that this past week, and that new avatar, and the quote of "If you see it, you can be it." So this is cool to see, and I'm excited to help announce that this weekend.
All right, as we get ready for the start of week number 2 here in the Echelon Racing League, let's go back and take a look at how this played out for our pro men in week number 1. A little bit different than what we saw in our elite women's field because, well, there weren't many dominant or dominant riders in there, let's say. Saw some good sprints in our men's races in week number 1. A couple of these came down to the final 10 or 15 meters. We saw Charlie Rebel try and take an early lead out of the group, but then the big man from Wisconsin, Jaden Yeager, takes over on the front. That'll be a name that you want to remember because Yeager becomes a major factor later on. But it was Brian Hunt's getting sprint out of the group to take the win. Matt Usborne ends up second, and Jan Deca takes third on day 1 in the Echelon Racing League. Week number 1, you see Sam Morris, Ben Thomas also in there. A lot of returning names. These are guys that have a lot of experience on the RGT platform. So I think there's a deeper pool of experience in our men's race. That's why you see these guys so close up in the top 10. Then on to day 2, Kevin Bouchard Hall takes an early lead on the front, putting a lot of riders into the red zone. We saw Will Harden take a look. Payne Griffin also tried to make a move off the front. And then Matt Usborne from the Above and Beyond Cancer team causes this split of 5 riders going clear. That set up this exceptional sprint for Usborne to the line where he just barely beats Payne Griffin to the chalk. And Matt Usborne takes day 2 of week 1 in the Echelon Racing League. Or is it Bickley? Yeah, Bickley got him right on the line. It came down to a photo finish. They actually had to go back and check it. It ends up Bouchard Hall, Bickley, and Usborne. And then Zach Nair from Project Echelon into 4th with Payne Griffin in 5th. So some close sprints in the finishing. Look at the time gaps. 2 100ths of a second between 1st and 2nd place. 6 100ths of a second between 1st and 3rd. And 2/10ths of a second between 1st and 4th. So, Lauren, it's going to be a good one out there today. And you can see a little bigger field in our pro men's race as well. This makes things a little more difficult, having more riders out there on course. But early on, it's just a matter of trying to make that selection. It's not a question of if, but when that selection goes.
Exactly. We saw so many attacks these last couple of races, and just these small breakaways happening, and just wondering when the chain was going to break, and it never did it? It always would seem to come back, after 1 or 2 laps. So yeah, again, is that the situation for today? I don't know, but I'm excited, and I really enjoy watching the men's race as well, and seeing how this is going to play out.
So riders to keep your eye on in the group. And more draft picks in our pro men's field here. Again, drawing from the community league and giving those riders a call up. We're going to be keeping our eye on these names on course. We saw Mike Lister with a top 10 ride in week number 1. Walter Claes also, and then Brian Hodges, maybe the biggest story of the Echelon Racing League draft, to be called up into the pro ranks with Triple X Racing and get a win, or at least get a podium. Pretty impressive. So these names, obviously a lot of talent in this field. A lot of it sometimes, Lauren, is just that they couldn't connect with a virtual team, that they just didn't have that, the ride or the relationship to find a team to race with. And so these riders were able to get picked up by some new teams in the Echelon Racing. Like, I'd say Hodges was a good signing.
Yeah, I think that was a good call for those guys. He's definitely turned out to be a exceptional rider.
So, again, only our second week of racing here in the Echelon Racing League after week 1 2 weeks ago. The community races happening in between. Next set of races comes in January. The Tour of the Gila will run January 7th through 9th, and then we get a little bit of time off before we go to the Tulsa Tough and Intelligentsia Cup weekends. Some of my favorite races in America on the Echelon Racing League calendar. I love seeing these real-life races that we love so much participating in the virtual world.
Yeah, we are lucky to have these platforms to see these races when we can't be there in person. So it is, like you said, it's really nice to kind of experience all of North America via Echelon Racing League.
We're going to be in your virtual backyard tomorrow in Durango, Colorado for the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic. Same time, same start time here on the Echelon Racing League. So I know this is a course that you know well from Durango.
Yeah, it is. It is a fun race right here. A little bit snowy right now, so it's nice to be in virtual land. It's essentially summertime.
All right,
see
off
the guys
and racing.
Like really pushing off the line here. It's yeah, you have to start so fast and so hard and aggressive. These guys cannot mess around when you start out the gate.
Yep. You can see already riders out of the saddle, which you very rarely see 30 seconds into a bike race. This looks like a finishing sprint in the Zoom room, but everyone's trying to make sure that they make that selection here. Wow, this is a big field. This many riders, Lauren, it's going to be easy to get caught out in this race. It'll be very easy to think, I can just sit behind this draft. I'm just going to enjoy what's going on at the back here, just sit on, and then before you know it, there's 5 or 6 riders away up the road. You have to be near the front to cover those moves. If you're sitting at the back of the group just watching and you see a group roll away up the road, this field is big enough that it's going to take you enough time just to get to the front of the field that move will be gone by the time you get there.
Yeah, for sure. Just like in real world, Brad. Yeah, you can't just put your head down or kind of zone out right at the beginning of the race. You definitely have to pay attention and be represented up at the front. So I imagine the Discord channels are kind of blowing up right now of stay at the front. Mark your guys if you're, or we're going to go on the attack. So yeah, Bickley already kind of stringing things out up there.
Oh, remember Brad Bickley, an aggressor in week number 1, not afraid to go hard, not afraid to get splits going. So it looks like Bickley and the above camps maybe kind of get some started up the road. And this is just as much a race on the front as it is a race at the back right now. This is where you start to see riders pop off one by one. Once you lose that draft, you go out of that group, your race is pretty much over. So I don't think you'll see this many riders finishing this race. A lot of times you'll see riders pull the plug. When they get dropped out of the group, it's no fun riding alone on these virtual platforms. Once you're out of the race, it's tough to find that motivation.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I was looking on social media after the race 2 weekends ago, and Peter Olenichek was kind of bummed that he didn't have a good race and he got popped out the back. And it's just like, hey, you know what? It's December, the holidays are happening, it's okay to be out of shape, but you know, we're still bike racers, true to our core, so it doesn't matter what time of year it is. When you get dropped, you're still bummed and you still want to be there for your team. So ever important to kind of keep in mind the big picture and to just enjoy racing your bike and doing the best you can.
A little look off the front for Gumbel here. Looks like he's been brought back by a motivated field. I would say it's a little early to be letting riders go here early on. So I think Gumbel got a pretty strong response from the rest of the field when he opened up just a little bit of time. And there will be a reshuffle. There'll be a reset at the front. In this larger men's field, we also start to see some team tactics unfold, Lauren. We saw it with the Above and Beyond Cancer team last week, where they were kind of keeping riders fresh and then sending their riders up the road sort of one by one. So they know the depth of their roster. They know how to use their riders. And there's definitely an advantage to having teammates in a big field like this if you know how to use them. So looks like some riders coming up to Gumbel here. And Hayden on the front, that is Dr. Hayden Warner making his way up to the front of the group. I got a DM on Instagram from Hayden just about an hour ago. He said, just got off shift, looking forward to a fun race out there tonight.
Could
he was
you imagine?
on call all night. Yeah.
So this is his afternoon. He's been primed and ready to go, whereas I'm maybe ready for my second cup of coffee. I'll
look back at Kevin Bouchard-Hall here. Looks like Bouchard-Hall in trouble. Remember, this was a strong rider in week number 1. He got off to a rough start today. Not sure what happened to Kevin here, but this is not where Kevin Bouchard-Hall normally likes to ride in the group.
In no man's land? Yeah, no way.
Yeah, he's come unglued here. Oy, oy,
There's
oy.
some good Christmas lights going on back there.
Yeah, he's got the RGB set up. He's got the little Christmas tree in the back view. I wonder if it was just that initial power. You have to go so hard so early, and if you're not perfect for that opening minute and a half, it can ruin your entire race. This is a really good indoor bike racer. I mean, this is a strong guy. He's got the power numbers. He knows how to race on RGT. He's raced on the platform a lot. He was with us in season 1 as well. So I got to wonder what happened here. You also have to remember that these people have real lives outside of virtual bike racing. They have kids and dogs and jobs and families, so
that's no excuse, Brad. I don't want to hear it. No,
I know,
he should be at the front, off the front.
I know. We got to remember it. There's other stuff in this world than bike racing. Chris Hatz, beast mode Rose Rider on the front. Man, these Germans really like to take it to it here. As Hatz goes on the attack again, we saw this same thing in our elite women's race. The beast mode Rose team. Early antagonist. Jaeger going to try and chase things down as well here on the front. No surprise. Jaeger was on our Esports World Championship team for the United States in 2020 and qualified again into 2021. So he'll be wearing the stars and stripes as they go to the Esports World Championships.
Yeah, whenever we see Jaeger in Zoom, he's always sitting and just like this got metronome pedal stroke, it seems like if he's attacking or not. It's always just this seated effort. He's a bigger guy, it looks. But yeah, I like the beast mode going on the attack. And I wonder, just like in real life, the women's team would talk to the men's team on what this course is like and how it plays out and where to go for the sprint. So, I wonder if they're having a bit of a conversation of, hey, just go on the attack and let's just be aggressive today.
Yeah. Hatz now has company from Sosnowski up at the front. Sosnowski into the red zone. Hatz going to sit in the draft. And now we are starting to see that gap open up. Look at some of these gaps, 30, 40 meters back for some of these riders. And right on cue, here comes another beast mode rider. It's Neuhaus.
See if they can't work together to kind of keep this break, or continue to establish a break. But doesn't look like they're going to be joined by a couple more folks. See if, again, like we've seen in the last races, there are breaks up, they go up the road, but they just don't ever stay up there, do they?
Now, just like playing poker, right? You got to wait for that perfect hand. You keep dealing and folding until you get just the right hand and you can go all in. And you got to find other people that want to play with you too, right? You got to find people that want to call your bets.
That's right.
Look at Jaden Yeager. There's the pain setup you were talking about. Steady as a rock. Some of his national championship jerseys hanging on the wall. Jaden is also a Masters time trial national champion on the road in real life racing. So that obviously translates pretty well to virtual racing. You see his state champions jersey as well down at the bottom left. And a Tour of America's Dairyland winner's jersey. That is the stage winner's jersey, the black and white cow print jersey they had hanging over his right shoulder. And I'll go ahead and call this group of 5 split because you see a clear split between 5th and 6th place. Matt Usborne is trying to come across the gap right now to make it 6 up the road. But there is a small split starting to form. Here's Chris Hatch, who we've been watching on the front. This guy's been super aggressive early on. It's in some sort of farmhouse or something.
That's just post and beam. Come on now.
Looks like Hatch has some movement on the front end of his bike as well. I'm noticing his handlebars are really moving left to right a little bit. We got to figure out what these guys are listening to. That'll be the next thing. We'll be able to tap into their music, hear their Spotify playlist. I'd be curious to know if it's just Discord or if you mix some music in there as well. Looks like Matt Usborne has been let out of prison. In week 1, he was racing in what Frankie Andreu in season 1 dubbed Cell Block F. He raced against this stark concrete backdrop. It was actually his balcony. I'm guessing it's now too cold in Canada to race outside, and he's moved to the basement. So nice to see that they let Usborne out for a little bit of recreation time.
Yeah. I don't have any comeback for that whatsoever.
It was cool watching the Above and Beyond Cancer Team race in 2020, and then I got to meet them in real life for the first time this year. They did a full calendar of races down here in the U.S., races that they hadn't done before, but came onto the Echelon Racing League and said, man, we got to check these out. So I saw a lot of those guys throughout the season coming to race some of the in-person races. It was pretty cool to see, including that at the Gateway Cup. Saw him, in fact, they got a Masters race win, I think with a rider named Randy Reichert, but it was cool to see that crossover from the virtual world into the real-life world, where I first learned about Usborne and the Above and Beyond Cancer Team racing the virtual Gateway Cup, and then got to see him in person at the real-life Gateway Cup.
Yeah, it's got to be nice to meet them in person and kind of see how their personality is versus their avatar, or how they race their bikes, and kind of merging the two in real life.
Here's an interesting setup. This is Will Harden with one of his Project Echelon teammates in the pain cave with him. I'm not sure who that is. So they facing opposite directions. They don't want to. They call this screen peeking when we used to play, video games as kids. It's like, don't look at my corner of the screen. Although they're teammates, so it's probably just a more comfortable setup.
I wonder if there's some sort of delay or that maybe throw them off a little bit. So let's just separate from each other. But we're in the same room. It could just be the width of the room. I don't know if. Yeah, I don't know if there's even space for a second monitor side by side there. Now this is a good setup. I like the look of this move going up the road here, because these guys all seem to be cooperating. Like, they all seem to be on the same page. They're not going too hard. They're not going over the top of other. The problem is they're just not getting that split that they're looking for. Right. Again, we're seeing a lot of attacks just like we have historically, but it just whittles each other down, but nothing ever really stays away.
Harden keeping it steady up here. So we go to Emmerich, the German from the Beast Mode Rose team. Riders also have to contend with this sort of, they call it the washing machine effect, right? Where you're at the back and you try and surge to the front to get there, and then you let off too much and you go to the back. You really want to avoid that. You want to avoid the back and forth if you can. That's the easiest way to wear yourself out. Just keep it steady. You don't want to be chasing to the front and then letting off and chasing back on and letting off. The ideal way to ride this, slow and steady, keep it at the front, keep it strong.
Yeah, and if you do need to fade back a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 pedal strokes easy, but then you got to get back on the gas because, like you're saying, you just get dropped so quick in virtual racing.
This guy turned on the Zoom filter. He's like, I'm not letting Soner make fun of my house. No way. Dave Flodgett from Restart Racing. Stay in focus. See the heart rate meter across his chest. I would think just about everybody is going to be racing with heart rate on this one. In fact, it might be a requirement in the Echelon Racing League.
Yeah, there are a couple of watches that you can wear and you can get that data on your wrist, but I don't know that it's as accurate. I mean, I'm no professional, but I do feel like just the chest heart rate monitor has tried and true, and what 99% of the peloton probably uses.
Yeah. Niklas Ranker took a little flyer off the front. He has since been reeled back in. Now, it's not a coincidence that you see so many of these familiar names riding at the front. Brad Bickley, Jaden Yeager, Christopher Hatz up there. I mean, you're seeing these same 10 names at the front because these are the guys that are driving the pace up here. As things get too easy, they're the ones that are going to the front. There goes Will Harden. They're trying to keep these guys on their toes, and it's working because now we're seeing bigger and bigger splits starting to form. So eventually it's going to crack. Eventually it's going to come. But there's a clear list of aggressors in this race. These guys inside the top 10, top 15 positions that stay up there. These are the guys that want to cause the split. And then if you have teammates, you'll turn it over to them later in the race. There are riders in this race whose sole job is to just split this group right now. Try and help their teammate get up the road into a breakaway. And that starts by splitting the field.
Exactly, and a lot of times you won't see the winner's name till the last third of the race because they're trying to essentially hide and let their teammates do all the work for them. And if they get up the road, if their teammate gets up the road and into an established break, okay, well then, like we were saying, that's the poker game that you play. But yeah, a lot of times you won't see the winner's name until the very end of the race.
Mike Swart taking a little look off the front. Got Hayden Warner with him. And Neuhaus going to join the group. Mike Swart is also part of the Echelon Racing League. He runs all the data on the back end of RGT. He's the guy that helps us get all this information out of RGT and into our scoring system. So Mike Swart has a deep knowledge of the RGT platform and is a pretty darn good programmer too.
To his race advantage?
Yeah. I don't know how you can use that to your advantage, but certainly spent a lot of time on the platform, that's for sure. These three got a good thing going here. Neuhaus, Swart, and Warner. Looks like Hutchings going to try and come across the gap, but we'll see if these guys hit it. Neuhaus back into the red. And then you look for the response from the field as well. Watch the 4th, 5th, 6th positions on the leaderboard to the left. I would expect them to go red. There's Davenport in the red zone now. Sam Siebel will be up next. Siebel was another draft pick. They're going to have to go harder than this. I hate to armchair quarterback these guys that are pouring their hearts into their trainers here, but you're going to have to go into the, I would say, red zones here if you're going to get this split going.
For a
Davenport's
going to
be able to make it across.
Too. Yeah,
exactly.
Brad, the interesting thing is if these guys if a couple of more teams could get across to this break, like we saw, if they could just get established with everybody represented, something could get up the road, but it always seems to reshuffle because 1s and 2s start going up the road, and then you may have 2 of the same team, and other teams are not going to let that happen. So that essentially brings it all back together, restart, reshuffle, and next attacks will usually come out of that.
All right, Gumbo back on the front here. Davenport trying to go as well. Want to show you inside another pain cave here in the Echelon Racing. This is the St. Louis Racing Alliance. This is a group of local St. Louis riders that got together. They're racing together in person here. I love this setup. How cool is this to be able to see riding with your teammates? You see they have those Ceres rocker boards under them as well. This might be the best setup of the week that we've seen here from the St. Louis Alliance riders.
I agree. Now you have, it looks like one of their teammates may have pulled out of the race and can kind of coach them along and encourage them. But yeah, seeing each other face to face, fans, computers, trainers, you have every thing at your disposal to do as best as you can in this virtual racing league.
I have to imagine that that element of in-person communication, to be able to just give that little look or that little nod, is just a lot quicker than having to rely on Discord, type it in or whatever. We also have an overhead shot of them. These guys are also the best producers, I gotta say, of the Echelon Racing League, giving us multiple camera angles. I love the zoom. They got a separate person to run the camera walking around. Industrial fan here on the left as well. It's about as big as his head. That's like a 700C wheel that blows air at you.
Not their first e-racing day, is it?
St. Louis has such a cool cycling scene. I don't know if you've seen the St. Louis Alliance, that they have this, when they travel outside of the state, they'll bring multiple teams to races like, let's say, Intelligentsia Cup in Chicago, but they all share resources when they go. So even though they race against each other locally when they're racing their local St. Louis scene, when they all travel, they travel as a group and they share trainers and tent space and logistics and all that stuff. It just makes it so much easier when you have people traveling from the same city or traveling together. It's really cool that all those St. Louis teams and racers can come together, be competitive in the local races, and then when they travel to region or national races, they can kind of link up and be pseudo teammates, I guess.
Yeah, it helps with the sense of community wherever you go, and also a learning factor because obviously there's probably different categories traveling around like you're talking about from their different teams, and so it's nice to have a little intel from each other and have that bond, that community, and to have that common factor, common denominator of bike racing. And that you can take that back home, and you have doctors and lawyers and friends for life in this peloton.
Yeah, great concept. I'd love to see more cities adopt this, sort of bring their most talented riders to the regional and national level races. We saw in Chicago at the Cyclocross National Championships last week. They have a great cyclocross scene in Chicago. Tons of clubs. They have racing every weekend out there in Chicago Cross Cup. For Cyclocross Nationals, they all put their tents together into a giant square foot compound. I think it was 10 by 10 tents, like 10 tents wide, 10 tents across. They lashed them all together, tied them off to everyone's car, and basically just created a giant party zone in the parking lot. It was the coolest thing that I've ever seen in the parking lot of a bike race, just to see all those clubs come together and unite around their love of bike racing. There was music. They had a little fireplace going. They had a record player inside. They were playing tunes. You could watch the live stream of the races in there. They even had a bottle of Malort that they were passing around that some of the
I don't know anything about that, but I hate that I missed this party. I'm definitely not going to miss it again. And yeah, I've got some great friends from the Chicago area, and these ladies that I'm friends with. Yeah, it's such a great community. And to go back, I helped with a coaching week and then into a racing weekend. And it's such a building of new athletes into this program and into bike racing, which is such a great avenue to keep that community and to keep, I think that's wonderful. Next time I won't miss that. So thanks for rubbing it in now.
I'll make sure you're on the guest list for 2022. Here goes Brad Bickley on the front. Triple X Racing is one of those Chicago clubs. We see them racing in the Echelon Racing League a lot. The team of Jackie Godby, a Chicago-based squad. Jackie also out of Chicago, but has been moving around with her various residencies, and well, she goes where she is needed, let's say. Bickley, Yeager, Harden, and Thomas going clear here Ben Thomas, a new name up the front, a former pro mountain biker out of the UK into 4th position here. Also raced with us in season number 1 for Team Tour 2000. Ben Thomas has a good sustained power. He'd be a good guy to take with.
Yeah, you definitely
And
see
already
Jaeger
Bickley
and Harden
picking up
staying in the
flat
red,
traffic
trying
here.
to get across.
Sorry. It's going to snap at one point. I mean, we are right on the edge of this one going. It's within minutes, you're going to see this selection being made. And Bickley, for all the aggression that he's shown out there, certainly doesn't look too blown early on here.
That's just poker face, Brad.
He knows he's on Zoom.
You'd think when he really gets to going hard or makes an effort, he's going to just open that door or that window right there.
And there you go, right on cue, out of the saddle. Yeah, see, this is the effort that we were waiting for on the front. These guys are going hard for a sustained period of time, and that is going to cause a split here. Oh, yeah, look at Jaden Yeager. Remember how comfortable Yeager was earlier? No longer, man. The jersey is off. Yeager is sweating. It is on.
First time I've ever seen him stand up in the Zoom.
Hey, Yeager looked like he was doing his taxes when we started. And now, a little more intense. Will Harden starting to field as well.
Seems like his teammate might not be
That looks like a
racing
dropped rider
anymore.
to me.
Just,
Yep.
Yeah, based on effort.
And once that draft, I mean, what is the motivation to keep racing? So I don't blame him. Once you fall out of that group, there is no polling in RG. We don't have the officials to whistle you off the course or anything like that. So you gotta make the decision on your own. But I think that's probably the right call. Save your energy for tomorrow, right?
Exactly. Tomorrow we got a little bit more sustained climbing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. All right, Harden and Yeager clear. Ranker 20 meters back. Then comes Bickley, Neuhaus, and Zach Nair all in a big group together. So Harden and Yeager are going to try and split it again. This is a dream team on the front right now. I would take these 4 names at the top of the list any day. Ranker, Harden, Yeager, and Bickley. I would put Zach Nair in that group as well for 5th. I mean, this is an all-star group getting to the front here. So we are starting to see the separation. It's happening a little slower than I thought, but it seems like this is a clear push to the front here, separating the strong from the weak.
Yeah, Zach was a big factor 2 weekends ago in making breaks happen and trying to establish breaks. He did a lot of work. So, yeah, when you start seeing him towards the front of the race, you know he's really trying to split things up, or the team's really trying to make this race really hard.
Let's go take
So
a
I
look
think
at
we're
our
also
hand
gonna be able
cycling
to take a
races.
look
Yeah.
at hand cycling
Sorry,
too.
Lauren.
Virtual life.
Yeah, so this is the front of our hand cycle competition, just under 8K to go. This is our men's H3 category with Kuman and Art on the front here. I'm going to Lauren first look at the RGT hand cycles. They look great out there.
This is wonderful. I think this is such a great feature, and so glad that they have incorporated this into the Echelon Racing League.
And amazing to see the different hand cycling machines as well, Lauren. As you know, so much goes into the customization of these bikes to get it just right for each athlete's individual ability level. And so I love seeing the machines and the setups that our hand and paracyclists have. This is another often overlooked part of para racing, the work that goes into, one, building the bikes, but last week we also talked about transporting the bikes. Getting these bikes across the country is a really difficult thing to do, and so that's why groups like the Paralyzed Veterans of America Racing Team, CAF, the Challenged Athletes Foundation, you see this jersey here, are essential in helping these riders get around the country and race their bikes in real life. But this is a great opportunity as well to get together and get some racing in without all the hassle of having to travel, having to pack the bike up. A lot of times you have to drive it across the country because many of these bikes can't be checked onto the airlines. So I love that these riders have the opportunity to race virtually here.
Yeah, it's good to see some familiar faces back from a couple weeks ago. I saw Jackie Jones in the Zoom. I just love watching any person race their bikes, so this is a great opportunity for us to get a little bit of inside peek into what they're doing.
Checking the game a little bit, checking RGT. Now these, the either recumbent bikes or whatever bike the riders are on will connect in the same way. They use basically the same drivetrain that our able-bodied riders are using in our men's race right now. It's really just a matter of measuring that power and however you generate the power. So for hand cyclists, obviously that's in the hand cranks up top, and then for a paracyclist, it would be in the bottom bracket if they're on that the recumbent bike, where they would be in more of a reclined position. But either way, you either put it in the pedals or the bottom bracket. There's a few different ways to measure power on the bike now. They've developed a few different styles of power meter. You can put it in the pedal, put it in the crank, put it in the bottom bracket. I think that's it. I think they're working on a shoe one as well, but that's not quite there. See Paul Kilgore, one of our C category cyclists. In para racing, there are two different sort of classifications, I guess. You'll see the C category riders and H category riders. The H category riders are hand cyclists, and then the C category riders would be any other para bike or any other style of para bike. So these are the hand cyclists here. You saw Paul Kilgore earlier on the Zoom. That was one of our para riders or C category riders. Both of these riders are H3 riders. So within each of those letter classifications, whether it's H, and there's also 5 different numbers based on your level of ability. There's a look at Kuman on the top. And then I think that's Jackie Jones back in the bottom of the Zoom room here. Both these riders staying in the red zone. Kuman getting a little bit of space here over Art. And you can see why he's floating between the red and orange power zones. See in the upper left corner of this shot too, those that white squiggly line. You see those tiny little red segments? Those are where riders have gone into their red power zone. So it basically shows the last like 30 seconds of the power profile of a rider. So you can see Kuman did some red zone efforts there for a little bit. That would explain the gap over Art right now.
Yeah, a bit of an attack essentially. And then seeing how much power they put out is also something that I really appreciate.
Kuman doing 160 watts right now. It's amazing the work that goes into the physiological side of training handling. Really a holistic approach because you have to have that strong core. You have to work out the shoulders. It's the hands. It's the arms. I cannot explain how difficult it is to power a hand cycle at these speeds for the better part of 34 minutes that they're coming up on right now, doing 28 kilometers an hour right there. You see the chain rings up at the front of Kuman. These bikes will apply the exact same drivetrains that the able-bodied bikes would use, so a lot of riders will still have 2 chain rings up front, and then they'll have 10 or 11 to choose from the cassette, wherever the cassette is located on their machine. Looks like Kuman staying in the big gear up front here. All right, so as Kuman continues to build time over Art and Jones, keeping it nice and steady on the bottom of our Zoom room. It's a very similar cadence between these two as well, pretty evenly matched here. So Kuman all alone, 3.5K to go here in the men's hand cycle field here. Kuman really starting to build this gap over Art up to 150 meters. So we'll keep our eye on that. Meanwhile, this is our C classification, or paracyclists. Saw Parangao and Kilgore battling last week. And looks like Parangao back to the front again today.
Yeah,
there's a
Parent-Gal's
look
got
at-
a pretty significant lead over Kilgore. And do I not remember last week they basically sprinted it out to the finish?
Yeah, yep, rode together into the last like 400 meters. I think Parangao maybe realized he could put a little more power into this one as well. Now these are different category riders, so it's not an apples to apples comparison. See Kilgore on the recumbent. Parangao able to ride an upright style bike, so they would be in different classifications, but they do race together on the course here in RGT. So again, 3 different races going on out there on 3 different virtual worlds. They don't race in the same virtual world. It does look the same, but they're on 3 different servers, let's say. So our 2 top cameras showing our elite men's races, our hand cyclists down the bottom right, and then our paracycling down in the bottom left. It's like Still trying to get that split started up in our elite men's field. We're monitoring that break of 2, 3, 4, 5 riders trying to get away. Nobody ever quite made it. But it looks like they may be trying to get another split going here as well.
It's pretty great to see all this racing happening today on a Saturday morning, virtual life. It's nice to be a part of.
All right, so our elite men, plenty of racing to go here, coming up on just inside 20K to the line. Paracycling inside 4K to the finish, and our hand cyclists on the way in here, inside their last about 1.5 kilometers of racing here, 1.8 to go right now for Kuhlman. We'll keep our eye on the end of the para race, watch this finish go through. And then we'll go back to our elite men's coverage. Art is on the way back here. Gap went up to about 300 meters. It's down to 200 now to come up to Kuhlman. Now, Kuhlman and Art are in the same category. They're both H3 riders. You see the men's H3, MH3 after Kuhlman's name. So it just helps us in RGT to figure out which category each rider is racing in. And there's Paul Kilgore from our para categories on the left side of your screen as Kuhlman approaches his final kilometer of racing, the front of the hand cycles. I love how realistic the hand cycling machines are. They really put a lot of work into, one, making sure that they physically look like the real-life hand cycles, but two, the physics, the drafting of a hand cycle. It all had to be redone because obviously it doesn't draft the same as an upright bike, and so they had to rewrite how all that sort of wind tunnel physics would work for the drafting, and that's a huge part of hand cycling. You see they have the bump bar on the back of their hand cycles or para bikes, and they'll use that to draft. They get right up onto the real rear crossbar of the rider in front of them, and they knew that would be important in hand cycling and paracycling, so they wanted to make sure that it was just right before they released it. It was really cool.
That's really cool that they take in all these details like that. That's something I wouldn't have thought about, so thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Obviously, the lower profile gives you a little better aero advantage as well. That's taken into account as we watch Sander Kuhlman inside his last 650 meters of racing here, the Dutch rider. Going through the final few turns. Looks like he'll keep this at a nice steady 90 RPM on the way in as Sander Kuhlman looks to be on his way to a win. All nice and steady for Kuhlman on the way here. I know these fields are going to continue to grow as the season goes on. Obviously, launching the new series, we're still getting the word out to our para-athletes who've been working with the Paralyzed Veterans of America and a lot of the CAF riders, the Challenged Athletes Foundation team. So I think we're going to start to see more and more para and hand cyclists joining us here in the Echelon Racing League as we watch Sander Kuhlman on his way to a win here at the Gateway Cup, Benton Park Classic. Your hand cycling winner for the ASC Olympia team. Congratulations, Sander Kuhlman. Back to Dennis Perenglau at the front of our para race. He's inside the last 600 meters of racing. And looks like he'll be able to hold off Paul Kilgore here for a 1 and 2. I see a strong effort all the way to the line here from Dennis into the red zone. For a lot of riders, Lauren, this is just a workout as well. I mean, yeah, you get the racing in, but this is also an opportunity to push yourself for an hour in a way that sometimes you can't when you're just riding by yourself on the trainer.
Exactly. Like, this is a better stimulus than just doing 3x12 or 30/30s or something like that. You actually are racing your bike and you get that stimulus and that excitement of trying to beat your competitors. So yeah, having this platform and this day and this race is just good for all around opportunities to do something a little bit different on the central nervous system.
Perrin Guau from the Paralyzed Veterans of America Racing Team in and done as our men's C classification winner here in the Echelon Racing League. Well, back over to our elite men's race. Looks like things have calmed down a little bit at the front. Good-looking group starting to form up on the front here. And again, it seems to be the selection forming off the back this week rather than the selection forming off the front. So these guys continuing to try to sort out who is going to make this elite selection. We're going to take a quick break here in the Echelon Racing League. Again, leaving you with some beautiful photos from the 2019 Gateway Cup from photographer Carrie Zukowski. I love these shots from the rainy days to the sunny days. Can't wait until we're back in person at the Gateway Cup. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more elite men's coverage. We'll get group or what we could find of the front group as they continue to make the selection from 60 down to 50, down to 40, down to about 20 remaining in contention here at the front group. And you can see the fatigue is starting to set in for these guys here in the Echelon Racing League. It's not an easy one here at the Gateway Cup Benton Park Classic, and it's because guys like Will Harden keep throwing in attacks on the front here from Project Echelon. We were watching Harden earlier as he continued to push. It looks like he has had some impact on this group as Harden is able to get away here. Will Harden was the rider with the dual Project Echelon rider setup. It looks like Zukabe getting back up to the front as well. Ben Thomas making another appearance. And Eric Hill starting to get into the mix. There's Will Harden. Hello, Will. I think he just waved goodbye to his pain cave companion there. I think he peaced out.
Thanks, but no thanks.
He's like, good luck, Will. You look great, man. I'm gonna go take a nap. We'll have to check in on our St. Louis riders as well, see if they're still supporting their guys.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. They're back. Just saw some motivation on the Zoom room for Will Harden. St. Louis crew going strong. There they are.
I mean, we got fans here. We got the director.
I think the third rider has gotten back on because they're going to get training in. Remember, we saw that rider off the bike earlier. And I think they were like, no, you still have to get the mileage. You still have to get some time in there. So. Here's a look inside the pain cave. I see some wrappers on the desk. That's got to be, oh, there we go. Energy gels on the floor. I love this. There were at least 3 gels down there, and they're being cheered on by Mario Cipollini.
Cipollini. Man, if that's not inspiration, I don't know what is.
All right, we're going to listen in here for a little bit, see if these guys are talking at all.
They're listening, guys. Chat it up.
Guys, how you feeling? Ask them how they're feeling.
How you feeling, fellas? Kind of mum's the word, Brad. Focused.
Hey, I don't blame them. They got a lot of work to do. Don't break the focus. I hear some music rocking as well.
I gotta try one of those. I wonder if they send those out to broadcasters for quality control.
We're going to send the broadcaster to St. Louis. We're going to put you in this pain cave.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah, bring it on.
Sit beside each other.
Sounds like you just got a guest ride on the St. Louis Alliance team. Congratulations, Lauren. You're the newest member of the St. Louis Alliance.
I feel honored and humbled. Thank you.
They have such a cool thing going in St. Louis. Great racing scene there. Obviously, having the Gateway Cup is a huge part of it. They also have the very cool Road Crew coffee shop. If you've not been, it's the bike shop, coffee shop hybrid. Where I had way too much caffeine at the Gateway Cup this year. Any city that has a bike-themed coffee shop, I'm down with. You know, if you got a good cafe where there's some good bike talk going on.
Those two things are hand in hand.
Yeah. Here's Brad Bickley, your current leader on course, the Above and Beyond Cancer team. Rolling off the front a little bit and trying to tell his team to give him a little bit of help. I think he just went into the voice to text on his phone, or might have jumped on Discord there, said, don't worry, guys, I got this, even though I'm flanked by 2 Project Echelon riders here.
The last 3K here, so things are about to start getting interesting.
Yeah, at this point, Bickley just waiting for that setup. I'm guessing he was just calling for some reinforcements up to the front. Davenport getting up there. And it's amazing how familiar these names have become over the last hour or so of racing. This guy's coming up on 54 minutes of elapsed racing, but it is not coincident 20 names keep appearing on the leaderboard on the left side of the screen. These guys clearly want to get there, clearly want to get to the front. They did their work early. A rider like Bickley may just be trying to set up another rider. He might have been the guy last week. He might have been the finisher for the Above and Beyond Cancer team last week, but that's what makes that team so dangerous, that they've got guys like Travis Samuel you see starting to pop up here. Another rider that got picked up in the draft. Matt Usborn we talked about. These guys can all sprint, and they can all finish. And so you don't know which rider to follow, and it's one of the dangerous parts about the Above and Beyond Cancer team.
Brad, and how about this dwindled peloton? I mean, these guys must have been going pretty hard today to come down to almost, what, 20 or 30 riders left here? This is a hard day.
Eric Hill taking a look on the front as well for Project Echelon. So yeah, if you made this group right now, you can feel pretty good about your ability on RGT. If you made this selection and you're still in this race, that's a successful day on the trainer, I would say. Eric
Agreed.
Hill still trying to reel things out. Hill's going to take Mike Swart with him.
A lot of folks in the red right now.
And I'm wondering if it might be a little early to be in the red. Neuhus putting a little red effort on the front here as Eric Hill goes back. Coming up on 1.5K of racing to go.
Got a counterattack by Harden here.
Yep. Remember we saw Will Harden racing earlier? And check this out. This is Jackie Godby cheering on her husband, John Cooper, in the mix here. You can't ask for a better person to watch over your shoulder on RGT.
Exactly. Do you think she's going to tell him exactly where to go for the sprint, too, hey?
I mean, she certainly knows, but I don't know that he has the legs that she had to finish. So inside 1K to go. Warner up to 700 meters to go now. A little bit of a gap, but they're going to close this one down. These guys will get swarmed, I think, before the end of this one. Down to 600. Here comes Roca up to the front. These three clear. Nihus, Warner, and Harden. But here comes the search. Roca with a big effort. 400 meters to go. Roca going. Gone. Down to 200 meters now. Harden dropping back under 50 meters. This guy is going to crush it. Mason Roca of the Gotham Greens Verge Sport Team comes out of the group and dominates the finishing sprint to win the Gateway Cup. Yeager tried to get in there for second. We'll have to go to the boards on that one. Zach Nair inside the top 5 as well. Hatz finished out in 7. Looks like Warner in there for 8th. Yeager ends up with a 9th place finish. And then Davenport in for 10. But man, the late race surge.
That was a heck of a sprint. That was a long sprint, Brad, to go from that far out and to hold it. That is a significant amount of time to be in the pain. That was had to have been capacity and pain.
They'll call a lot of riders off, I think, with the long rain from a ways out. I think everyone was kind of waiting. And then once that rider went, there was no looking back. Let's see how things shook out inside of our top 10. And there you go. Roca wins by 2.8 seconds to open that kind of gap in the last 50 meters. What a ride from Mason Roca today. Brad Bickley ends up second. Matt Usborne third. Man, all the big names up here inside the top 10. Ben Thomas in fourth. Zach Nair in fifth. Neuhaus, we saw at the front a lot today, into sixth for the Beast Mode presented by Rose Team with his teammate Chris Hatz in there in seventh. Hayden Warner, Jaden Yeager goes in ninth, and Andrew Davenport in for 10th place. Look at the watts per kilo, Lauren. 3.56, the lowest watts per kilo on the board for our race winner. That's an efficient day on the bike for Mason Roca.
Yeah, like we were talking, I mean, we didn't really see his name much at all today until right there at the end. And I think he really got Usborne and Bickley by surprise, seeing those guys kind of rounding out the podium and Usborne so close 2 weeks ago. I think Roca went early and caught those guys a bit off guard. That was a good race and good win for Mason Roca.
Oh, certainly going to make things interesting heading into week 2. You see more riders continuing to finish in. Credit if you hung into this one. It would be so easy to just unplug that machine, man. When you come unglued out of the group, it's got to be tough to hang in there. So riders still finishing up as we go inside the top 20. Roca not on our Zoom call today, but we do have Brad Bickley in the Zoom. So let's go to Emma to try and grab a word with Mr. Bickley on his ride.
All right, thanks, Brad. I'm here with our second place finisher, Bradley Bickley. Long race, tough race. What was your mindset during that last sprint?
It's funny, like I was kind of thinking I wanted to keep my guy over to the left-hand side of the road just because the last 2 turns are left-handers. And I was finding throughout the race that you kind of got a boost by being on the inside. And then obviously like any sprint, it was just, at 150 to go, put your head down and absolutely annihilate yourself.
Yeah. What was your strategy for your team going into this race?
Yeah, I think our team strategy was the same as it would be for, any crit outside. Just, any moves that go, we want to have a guy in it. And then if there's a lull, we want to send a guy up the road. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. We were represented in, I think, every move that went. And happy. I mean, happy to get the second place out of the bunch sprint.
Talking about that podium finish, how are you hoping to carry this momentum into the next race?
I'm really excited about tomorrow's race just because it's going to be a lot different than, the races so far. Like there hasn't been a lot of climbing, and from reconning the course yesterday, it looks like there's about a 7 to 10 minute climb each lap. So I think that likely the race will blow to bits. And I'm not a pure climber, but I can climb okay. So it'll be painful and fun for sure.
Awesome! Congratulations on your podium finish, and we'll see you tomorrow. Back to you guys.
Oh, congratulations, Brad. And Lauren, it's going to be a whole different day tomorrow as we head to the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic. I am so excited for this one, a new addition to the Echelon Racing League for a long road race, but it's the climbing that I'm looking forward to most tomorrow.
Yeah, 50-year anniversary of the Iron Horse bike race. Registration has opened up. I may have already signed up for the in real life event. And just like he was talking, there's going to be a 7 to 10 minute climb, and it's going to be a completely different race. We've had criteriums up until this point, and he is even talking about how you strategically line up your avatar to go into these last couple of corners. So yeah, quite the different race tomorrow, and it's going to be fun to see this one play out too.
Yeah, big question on my mind is, do we see the same names up there, or do we see new names, riders that have been waiting for those big climbing days? Because there's a lot of riders, I got to think, that are in this field saying, just give me a long race, just give me a chance to climb, and I can shine there. So it's going to be, I think, some new faces on the front of the field tomorrow. This would have been a great race for you. This would have been right in your wheelhouse, Lauren, as a strong all-round rider, sprinting, climbing, a little bit of time trialing in there as well. It's going to be a perfect course for the all-round riders tomorrow.
Yeah, when I raced Iron Horse in real life, I had to go up against Mara Abbott, so my chances went to that. But except for the crit, I did well in the crit and won the criterium once. Yeah, but this is going to be great, and you never know, and that's the beauty of well, here it's at altitude, but in real life or in virtual world, anything can play out.
Tons of history on tomorrow's course. That is going to do it for our coverage today from the Echelon Racing League. We are back at 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow for coverage, and race starts at 11:10. Just it's after the hour. Lauren Hall, my name is Brad Soners, and thanks for watching week number 2 of the Echelon Racing League. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, for the Iron Horse Bicycle Classic.